You're listening to The Dan Nicholl Show.
One of the great joys of the Dan Nicholl Show is that I'm able to present a podcast which is a front for getting to catch up with old mates and indulge shamelessly in lashings of nostalgia. And that's exactly what I get to do today, because my guest, for most of you, will be this major celebrity comedian you probably had a poster of up in your bedroom wall growing up, and you've still got the VHS tapes of his early specials. But for me, he's a good mate who first a little starstruck, saw at a comedy club in Cape Town, but has now become someone I've known for 2 decades and counting, which suggests we're both older than we would like to admit, and remains one of the benchmarks of South African comedy. Kurt Schoonraad, welcome.
Thank you very much. With an introduction like that, I'm like,
Well, you did write it for me.
yeah, I did. I was like, this is my new manager. This is wow, that is fantastic.
I was remembering on the way in, as I worked my way past the crowd of slightly older single mothers in leopard print outside the hotel who'd got wind of your arrival, and made my way up to the Cape Grace suite, which they gave me only because you were coming along. The very first time and I saw you, we have a very good mutual friend in Stuart Taylor.
Yes.
And the hotbed of southern suburbs-ish comedy 20-odd years ago was the Independent Armchair Theatre in Observatory, when Observatory was definitely a little rough around the edges. And there was this guy called Kurt Schoonraad, who had the most amazing hair, a little more then perhaps than now. He just took to stage, and I just remember being entranced, because with this completely casual, making it up along the way, or so it seemed, you obviously weren't, but you just had this wonderful perspective on life in Cape Town, life in general, and you just made everybody laugh, and it all seemed so simple.
Wow, that's it's amazing how you see that so fondly. I remember starting out. I was just so scared of trying it. It's funny it's easy being funny around your friends at a bar somewhere, but to be invited onto a stage, and I remember the Armchair Theatre it was like early days, so I'm really chuffed you felt that way about the set. But I promise you, there was monkeys in my head at the time trying to get through it.
It must be terrifying, because if I think of the guests we have through the seasons of the show, we'll have chefs, and they'll start out peeling carrots and washing dishes and slowly make their way up. We'll have sports guys who've made their school first team and played some provincial, and it's very much incremental. But if you decide, I am going to try stand-up comedy, you are getting up in front of a group of people you've probably never met, other than a few friends you got along, and maybe your mum for moral support, and you were saying to them, I am funny, I am going to make you laugh, and there is an expectation, and that must be terrifying the first time you do it.
Man, it's because you're trying to get a very specific reaction out of them, and laughing is something that's very difficult to fake, even if you're trying it. And also, I don't think that you just decide to do comedy at any given stage. It's like comedy chooses you.
It's a calling.
It is a calling. It is and it's also a, you look at Eben Esbeth, for example. You look at his size and you look at his condition, and that's a lifetime of conditioning that gets to that point. He didn't just wake up somewhere and go, I'm going to take on rugby now. It's not like that at all.
No.
He spent a lifetime of tackling and kicking and running to get him that fit in that condition.
Yeah, but then I worked very hard on these physiques.
The same thing with comedy. There's a lifetime of conditioning that comes along with it. I think silly shit happens to comedians, so we got something to talk about. Yeah.
Do you remember the first time you gave it a proper crack? Was it an open mic session somewhere?
Man, I remember I was living in Mitchell's Plain at the time, and there was an ad in the local community newspaper. It was for the Smirnoff Comedy Festival at the time.
I remember
that.
That is going back.
Exactly. It was 1999. And the ad read, do you think you're funny? And if you do, come and try out for the Open Faces stage, which was the studio upstairs. And I remember my girlfriend at the time going, come and give it a swing. You're funny with your guys around the bar and so on. So I said, I tell you what, I will do it just to prove to you that I won't get in. And I tried out. I met a young man. The both of us were there for the first time. And he had a falling act. He had fallen down a flight of stairs as he came onto the audition stage, and all the judges tried to help him up. And that was Alan Committee.
That
And
sounds
it
like just the kind of thing Alan Committee would do.
exactly.
So
So
you guys started out together.
we started out together, yeah, about the same time. I think he was involved in the theatre before then. He's always been the thespian type before the stand-up. For me, it was just stand-up, straight up, you know.
He was also, of course, a school teacher who made many kids laugh and even more fail matric.
Apparently, the school teacher trajectory that ends up in the stand-up space is not
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 unusual.
new. No, I think Dalen Oliver also ended up as
Yeah.
a stand-up after being a phys ed teacher. So this is where I started out. I got my first night out. They were at the Smirnoff Comedy Festival. There were 2 people in the audience, of which one was the critic sent to review the show. I went down in a big ball of smoke. On the last week of the run, I ran into 2 English peeps that were there to watch the show. Mark Sampson and Sam Pierce,
Aha.
who invited me along to the Armchair Theatre that the Cape Comedy Collective was doing some stuff there. They went, come along, we've got some other comedians, some guys called Mark Lottering, Stuart Taylor, Nick Rabinowitz, Kagiso Lediga, among others.
All
And
modern greats.
all the greats. And back then, we were all just a couple of kids trying to get a set together, you know. So I was really chuffed to be invited along. And the rest is history, really. I never had a real job after that.
Or before. Uh,
Strange enough, I did. I was a sales rep.
I was going to ask you about that because I can see you being a very convincing salesperson.
Man, you know, it's stand-up e-sales.
It is.
It's exactly what it is. It's sales. And I used to be a sales rep for a freighting company. I used to sell courier, bro.
Kurt Schoonraad, he always delivers.
Always delivers. That's right. It's all about timing.
Well, the freight industry's loss was definitely comedy's gain, and a gain that came from your ability to draw so enthusiastically, so colorfully, so personally from your own background, from where you'd grown up with. And the one I always remember was the television interview with Mr. Braincheese, who I think he'd seen a car crash or a plane crash or something had
He
happened.
just witnessed a robbery. Yeah.
He'd witnessed a robbery, that was it. And you just create this person, and not only is it in itself a very, very funny piece of comedy, but I've watched it and looked at an audience with people who I can see from their reaction, they know Mr. Braincheese. Maybe not himself, but they've grown up with exactly that person. And it's a great ability to be able to tap into the cultural zeitgeist so accurately and so personally.
Man, most of the job is really just observing people. Their mannerisms, their nuances, and the confused pauses, and those are the things that make stand-up comedy special. Well, for me, anyways. And I'm a bit of a purist when it comes to stand-up. You're not allowed to use props or anything like that. You got to use what you have on stage, and that's just you and a mic. And
I've never liked Conrad Koch either.
Conrad Koch. Now listen, that's a completely different genre. Having said that, Conrad and myself also. He was one of the other guys at the Cape Town Comedy Collective.
I saw him for the first time at about the same time.
Exactly. We all started out there. In fact, a lot of the Joburg guys that have gone on to do fantastic stuff all start. David Carl was part of that group as well.
I was doing an event with David Carr last night.
Wow, small world.
It is indeed.
I'm tempted. No, it's those small things, those observations of how people behave in situations is what makes stand-up comedy an absolute kind of. It's almost a relief for me. It's like therapy. I go up in there, I'm having a really crap day, and I'm allowed to share my opinion. I see what's going on in the world. And I mean, there's a whole lot going on in the world right now.
I hadn't noticed.
You ever noticed there's a big orange guy with a really bad comb over that's making fantastic comedy. And I'm a little envious, in fact. So, I don't even have to try and change it. All I do is I just quote him verbatim, and I get some laughs out of it.
You got lost from the very start and became a bit of a cult favorite in the Cape. But then things took a big step forward. And I remember watching with both delight and envy as I think still one of the seminal pieces of South African television ever made in this country came out. And that was you and the aforementioned Stuart Taylor. I think you had Dave Levinson for a while. And you basically sort of homeless comedians who were unemployed. You dragged along. You found a 350 rand car and you drove it around the country with a couple of early Nokias with camera phones on them. And you ended up giving us I still think the best travelogue South African television has ever had.
Man, we were so lucky to get invited to do Going Nowhere Slowly. It was it certainly did a hell of a lot for my career as a comedian. But I think we didn't know what it was going to become. We had no idea. I was involved in the pilot of Going Nowhere Slowly. We shot in Hermanus with an English comedian, a Australian comedian, and myself. And it sat on a shelf for a really long time. I think it was about 3 years, in fact, after the pilot was shot. And then somewhere along the line, someone from the SABC called up and said, why aren't we doing the shows? We've been trying to sell it to you guys for ages. And nobody wanted it. They didn't think it would work. Long story short, about a week later, we were on the road shooting. And the first season, I don't know if it kind of hit sides then, but by season number 2, we couldn't take that car anyway. And I was invited to a casting the other day, and it said the brief was a Going Nowhere Slowly type show, right? And I was surprised to not get in at all, really. So I thought I would have had some kind of edge there, but apparently not.
They probably just didn't have that kind of budget. It allows you to do something that I don't think we do enough of in South Africa. And this is very much a general statement, but there are so many extraordinary spots off the beaten track that you got to meander your way through. I've discovered a lot through you. I think my good friend Pete Goffwood, the very elderly chef, with his Braai Master show, he's discovered some towns I don't think he'd ever heard of, let alone me. All these places where the people are incredible, the natural beauty is amazing, the food is great, and you've got to see, I suspect, so much more of South Africa than most other South Africans ever will.
I was, again, so lucky to be invited to play on that show because we so didn't know what we were in for. But you're right, we got to travel to some of South Africa's most amazing small towns, got to meet unbelievable people, got to see some really cool stuff. And I mean, there's a couple of things that just stick out, you know. I was in a cage with a cheetah once. I did a bungee jump off
This
low
is the
trance.
animal and not the MTN Gladiator.
No, not the MTN Gladiator. No, I was in a cage with a king cheetah, which is most people don't know that the king cheetahs actually exist. They are maned. The males are maned, and they just twice the size of a normal cheetah. And we had some cheetah sanctuary up in the north of South Africa somewhere. And then, of course, there was other parts of sub-Saharan Africa that we got to do, like Zimbabwe, which you might remember the name.
I do indeed.
You do.
You took a 42-year-old car into Zimbabwe, and it became the newest and most modern vehicle in the entire nation. It was very exciting.
It did.
We watched admirably.
That was a special episode. We went to Mozambique where we were urged to bribe a cop, and the cameraman didn't stop rolling. It was fantastic. We got to see some really cool stuff there. And then there was Malawi. There were just so many fantastic moments. I mean, right now, there's just a plethora of pictures that are coming to mind and interviews that we've done. We met a guy that does his own dental work in Port Alfred, which was fantastic. Some horse teeth and some super glue. Who knows?
Something the aforementioned Mr. Braincheese probably.
Mr. Braincheese was so present at that deal. And we just got to travel for it was challenging from time to time because we were living out of a suitcase, traveling for between 4 to 6 weeks at a time. It's not the kind of thing we could do anymore. Not with families and bonds and that kind of thing, you know. But back then we were like, there were no big obligations other than just having fun with your mates, you know. We were kids having the best time.
You've clearly got to love South Africa. That shines through. And most people would think, well, that must be why Kurt took the job, because he got to see South Africa. When in fact, I suspect a very large chunk, other than the vast salary I know you were paid for this job, was I get to play with a cool car.
Yeah.
And as anybody who spent more than about 3 minutes with you knows, the conversation will get to cars and then you just lose interest in any other subject at all.
I am such a car guy. And I can't help myself. I just cannot. I'm in love with the automobile in its entirety. And we had a particularly special one on that show. In fact, we had 3 different ones. They were just all large, American, and red. Sorry. And so nobody noticed that we actually changed them out in between Fords and Chevrolets and stuff like that. But I was also the running mechanic on the show.
And they look like cars that might have needed a mechanic from time to
Well,
time.
strangely enough, they didn't.
Yeah.
No, that old Chevy Impala we had, it just kept ticking, just kept going. We didn't do much to it at all. Just made sure that the water and the oils and the oil liquids were topped up, which was my job. And it just kept going. It was an unbelievable car, and testament to my theory that those old American 50s and 60s stuff were made to last forever.
I remember we filmed years ago. We went out to Johan Rupert's car track at Lomorin, and he very kindly gave us some cars to drive. And I don't think I've ever seen one person look more excited as we went through the motor museum and then out onto the track. And what blew me away was you'd look up and spot something. Ah, yes, that's the 1961 Maybach. That was the year they changed the spark plugs from baby blue to navy. And there was nothing you did not know about every single one of these cars.
Man, I was in my element on a whole nother level. I think the curator of the museum was called Mark Harley.
Yep.
Absolutely fantastic guy. I'm so super envious because he's got the best job in the world as far as I'm concerned. And we just clicked. We got along like a house on fire. It's still one of my favorite days on any track. Thank you, by the way. That was a great day out.
It was a lot of fun.
We had a crap load of fun. It was helmets and private racetracks and great cars, and I can't think of anything better. It was a great day out.
Life's pretty much been downhill since then for Schoonraad.
Well, I've had some other great days in the car space as well. Of course, I still do the page Kurt Loves Cars.
Yeah.
And that has become, if I could do that for the rest of my life and the occasional comedy show, I'd be a happy man, really.
Well, I think you are a fairly happy man because certainly omnipresent smile. Yeah, you're still doing a great deal of comedy and there are still cars that flit across the horizon. Is there still the same buzz when you do comedy as there was when you first started out?
That's a great question. Because for a long time, also I went into the business of comedy. So I started the comedy club down here in the waterfront. That was a big step for me.
Mostly trying to explain to Americans why you called it Yo Maza Comedy Club.
Yo Mazy Comedy Club. Watch this, Yo Mazy Comedy Club, man. So we had to change the name to Cape Town Comedy Club. And that was great. It was a fantastic piece of my life I'll never forget. But it was hard as nails. And I don't think I would have done it had I known how hard it was going to get. There was 36 staff in there. There was a big monthly payment for rent to the waterfront. There was managing other comedians.
Who are generally a very easygoing, relaxed, on time, simple lot to deal with.
That extent of the sarcasm, dude. You have no idea. Just there were nights I'm phoning up guys going, bro, you're on in 20 minutes. Where are you? It's like, I'm at the movies with my girlfriend. What do you mean, where are you? I'm like, dude. So yeah, it's like herding cats. And that lasted for almost 10 years. It took a big chunk out of my career, with hindsight. It was very valid, and I think it formed a very important part of my life and my career choice. And then recently, post-COVID, I was trying to recover from that. Because the club closed during the course of COVID. And I kind of fell out of love with the comedy thing again, because I was doing the older material. I wasn't feeling it the same way anymore. And then last year, I was like, bro, I had that chat in the mirror. Like, bro, you gotta do something. Okay. So I booked the Baxter. I booked the dates. And this is the way comedians do it. You book the dates and then you write the show after you book the dates. You don't write the show and then book the dates.
And hope that it's finished.
And then hope that it's finished, exactly. So I booked the dates, and that was recently. That was May this year. That was just about 3-4 months ago. And I remember opening night. I remember going, why the hell do I do this to myself? Because the press was in, a room full of other comedians.
There was a lot of excitement because this is a big name it almost felt like you were making a comeback of sorts.
It's exactly what it was. It was an attempt at a comeback. I'm not sure if it was successful or not because I'm a little too close to the picture. But then I had posters on every pole in Cape Town. I had a publicist I employed to get the job done. We did a fantastic job, by the way. And then I pulled all of my friends in and tried to get interviews with just about everybody. So there was quite a bit of hype about it. And then opening night came. Backstage, I'm like, bro, why? Long story short, the best week I've had in comedy for 10 years at least. And I ended up with a show that I'm so excited about. A completely new take on comedy. They laughed at all of it, or with all of it, sorry. So, in fact, in 2 weeks' time, I'm off to Peter Turin's Theatre in Monte Cassino for a 2-week run there.
Which is
It's
fantastic.
fantastic. It's called Funny Side Up, and it was directed by Dave Levinson. You might have heard of him.
And it's a very brave call to give the man with the probably the slightest concentration span on the planet the direction role, but I can also see how he would create some magic with that.
Man, he's one of my best mates. We go back all that time.
You've been through a lot together.
We have been through a lot together. We've done Going Nowhere Slowly together. We've had we had kids like 3 weeks apart. I don't know how that happened.
Although you found out about them 9 years apart.
And then we had the baby shower together, which essentially just meant, listen, it's going to be very expensive for comedians. Just bring diapers, guys. Diapers and whiskey. I think that was the theme. And then when it was time to write a new show, you need a director whose sense of funny you trust. And Dave, I asked him, and he went, have you lost your mind? I went, yeah. Okay, let's give it a swing. And what the result was something that I so didn't expect.
Yeah.
It's more of a storytelling exercise now than a stand-up show. It's not that club funny anymore. Now it's a big storytelling thing where I take you on this journey, and the show, I'm so proud of it. And I think Davies as well.
I think there is a point in a comedian's life where if you've done as well as you have, you are allowed to have that sort of reflection. But I also think it's happening at a time where comedy has embraced that more, and it is a style of show and of embrace that you're offering the audience that we really gravitate towards and appreciate.
Man, I'd like to believe that. That gravitation towards a good, honest storytelling exercise is fantastic. And I think there's a whole lot more of it going on in the stand-up world or the comedy world than there ever has been. What's very challenging is that it was an autobiographical piece. So I speak very intensely about my dad and what he meant to me, for example. And I've never really done that before, not even in my personal life. So to have it happen on stage is quite something, and it's quite an emotional journey for me. But at the end of the day, I walked off that stage for the first night going, "Wow, that's arguably the best show I've ever done," because it's never been as honest, and I think the world's also taken on stand-up in a different way now. If I look back at how the evolution of stand-up has happened from, like, let's say, a Mal Miller space to a Barry Hilton space, who's also I worked with him 2 weeks ago, is funnier than ever. And then into this modern space of storytelling, because storytelling's been around since the beginning of time. Since we've been able to communicate as a species, there was the storytelling exercise. And I think it's just going back to its roots. It's not a new thing at all.
It is so exciting that you have got this coming up. I am delighted to see how excited you are about this, and to see such an old and such a good friend so fired up about doing what you do best. And I think this resurgence is not going to stop anytime soon. And it's going to add to my great memories from drinking quarts out of a boot in a car park at Stuart Taylor's wedding with Snodgrass, who we remember so fondly, to watching you in those early days at the Armchair Theatre, driving fast cars around the track out at Lomarin, many misadventures, and just to be able to reflect on all of those and to see you still firing on all cylinders and coming back even bigger and better is really cool to see.
Man, thank you. And you've been a big part of that exercise, and
I take entire credit for all of your career
and shared some fantastic highlights together. And then I've been blessed. I really have. I've been surrounded by absolutely fantastic people, present company included. Some great comedians, and none of this I expected at all. I was just happy to do the first week of comedy at the Smirnoff Comedy Festival. That would have ticked that box. And then somewhere along the line, it, I felt like I was chosen to do something else. You know, I'm not religious at all, but this is as close as I get to it. You know, I do believe in serendipity. You know, this certainly feels serendipitous that I got to be this and become this comedian, and I'm still in awe of all of the fantastic things that happened to me as a comedian, in the community I serve and I'm part of. And now there's this great bunch of young comedians coming through now as well. And I think we are the future of stand-up or comedy in South Africa is in good hands, bro.
I think it is. Serendipity is a great word. Also, of course, the name of that dancer we met at that bachelor party about 20 years ago. We
In the car park with
remember her fondly. Good, Schoonraad, thank you so much. It's been a delight. Let's go do some driving again soon. I look forward to watching you up on stage and maybe find a car park to have a couple of quarts out of the boot of a car with and relive some more great times.
Thank you, Dan Nicholl. The pleasure will be all mine.
On the show this week, Kurt Schoonraad. New shows will be popping up not just all over South Africa, I suspect, Broadway and the West End and many others to come. He is an enduring force for good in South African comedy. Just whatever you do, do not make the mistake of asking him about cars. Kurt Schoonraad on the Dan Nicholl Show this week.
You're listening to The Dan Nicholl Show.